Hello, everybody. What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to All Knicked Up for July 5th, 2023. Wow, man. Crazy stuff right there. Uh, as you know, it's a weekly Knicks show about the New York Knicks where we discuss everything going on with your favorite orange and blue team. Well, most people's favorite orange and blue team. I am one of your hosts, Eric Holzman. And tonight we'll be discussing everything going on in the Knicks offseason as you see there on the screen. But one thing we'll be clearly discussing, of course, is the Obi Toppin trade first. But as you know, I don't do this myself. So let me bring in the two guys who will be joining us first. Let me bring in Ty.
Yo.
What's up, man?
What's going on, brother? What's going on?
Not much. I'm sorry I look a little rough today. I've been running around doing a lot of things, and my face is all flushed. I was working out, all this other crap. So
you were just reading the Knicks stuff. That's all it
was. Yo, a lot's happened in a week. A lot has happened in a week, right? Crazy.
Absolutely crazy.
But we kind of have a mini announcement. So let's bring them on first.
Yes, sir.
As you guys know, Joe has been joining us the past 2 weeks here on the show. And we are going to make this a permanent thing. So, Joe, welcome to the team full time.
Well, good.
Welcome.
Yes, sir.
Very excited.
Us too, man. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Like I said, we really enjoy the dynamic you give us. Ty and I could be very sometimes demonstrative and a little bit more animated. You're kind of just a laid back, chill guy, which we appreciated. Well, at least so far you've been. We might get to a point where you lose it a little bit on us, which is fine. I'm not gonna be mad at that. That'd be fine. Everyone has their moment.
Topic with me,
huh?
The Knicks can be a hot button topic with me. I might get my Irish up.
That's why we are here, right? That's why we are here. I think. That's why we're all here together now and talking about this and continuing to talk about what's been going on. But like I said to Ty, it's been a kind of a not I don't know about exciting week, but it's been an active week. I'll say that.
Yes, it has.
One thing that we knew about that was probably happened, and then another thing that was talked about and I wasn't sure was going to happen did happen, and that's the more important one. So I'm going to go to that first, at least in my estimation. Obi Toppin was traded to the Indiana Pacers for 2 second-round picks. Now, outside of my feelings on the player, who I like very much, I like Obi Toppin a lot. That's just terrible. That's a terrible get for him. Like, he is, in my opinion, if you look at his advanced metrics, which everyone does now, he should have gotten them a first-round pick in return. Obviously, I don't think it wouldn't have been a high first, I don't think. And if he's going to Indiana, I think with him and some of the other changes that they've made and guys they've drafted, they're going to be in the mix for the playoffs as well. So I don't think their pick would be a lottery pick. So whenever the pick is going to be conveyed, but it even could have been down the road. Like to me, it's another example of them taking an asset that they have, a high value asset, a guy who they thought was well enough to pick 8th overall, and just taking whatever they could get for him. And it goes to the larger philosophy that I've had about this team. Now, I gave them benefit of the doubt. I've said, they're doing it the right way. They're trying to build assets. They're trying to build through the draft. They're trying to draft players, develop young players. This is the same exact script that this team has been doing now since Ewing's been here. Like it's even been before the Dolan years when Dolan's owned the team. This has been going on forever where they're just trying to find some star and bring them here. And this time they were just disguising it like, oh, we're not trading our picks. We're keeping them. We're drafting them, blah, blah, blah. So what's the big deal if you're picking them and then drafting them 3 years later or 2 years later? Like it's the same thing. So, in my opinion, this is just, it's the same thing. I always say same script, different cast, right? It's let's get assets. Let's just wait for the next star to come but now instead of never having the assets, we have enough of them. Now you can argue if they're good or bad or what kind of assets they have. If you want to grade them, whether it be players or draft capital, that's fine. But for me, it's the philosophy. It's always the philosophy of them not staying the course with this one way. Develop your young players. See if you can grab a star. I mean, Obi was a weird situation. They did draft him to replace Randall, but Randall blew up that season, and it was kind of weird. Now we've talked about compounding that, not making him prove the year wasn't a fluke and all that. We've talked about it in the past. I don't want to rehash that stuff, but I am this close to like not even caring anymore because I just don't feel like I'm ever going to see this team stick to one to do something different. If they're going to rebuild, then yes, just rebuild and don't worry about everything else. Worry about developing the players you have. And that's what I don't think they focus enough on. So I'm sorry I went on a long rant to start the show, but it's been on my brain all day, and I didn't want to let it go past where you guys start talking and then change my train of thought. I wanted to get it out there. So, Joe, what did you think of the trade and my comments and all that?
I don't think anybody's going to have a short response to this. And to illustrate that, I've been thinking a lot about this and trying to remove the emotion of us really failing for many, many years in the lottery with our selections. And I put a lot of thought into this, and I can express it in 3 different baskets. What the actual mistake was that was made. What happened afterwards that a lot of people think are mistakes and actually aren't mistakes. And the third part is why there is hope for the future. Now, again, hope isn't something that a lot of Knick fans are going to expect to hear from, but I'm a little bit less of like the pitchforks and torches kind of crowd right now on this. Okay, so going back, I remember when Tibbs got fired from Chicago, he went on this tour. Like he was going to see how other people did things and absorb this and learn from it and all of these things. And he always winds up being Tibbs. And what the mistake was is that I think Tibbs in the front office thought that he had more to him than what he is. They should have never drafted Obi Toppin. He's not a Tibbs player. The idea that Tibbs could coach Obi Toppin into a successful player is crazy. And then this kept on going on with the front office. We're going to bring in Evan Fournier. We're going to bring in Kemba Walker without an honest appraisal of who is leading this team and what the roster is. So that's the mistake. After they drafted him, everything was a sunk cost. If anybody's ever taken business classes, you understand what a sunk cost is. Obi Toppin instantly became a sunk cost. It's something that it would have cost more to fix it than just to bury it after that. Now, I've heard a lot of things that people think are mistakes, like showcasing Obi Toppin to increase his trade value. That would be at the expense of the rest of the team. Playing in a way that would accentuate Obi's positives would not play to the strengths of the rest of the team. So I don't believe that was a mistake. Second thing that wasn't a mistake, playing Obi Toppin in front of Randall or not signing Randall to the extension. I believe they were justified in signing him to the extension. I'm going to put that in the hope basket right now and revisit that. Obi Toppin was not ever going to start in front of Randall, and he shouldn't have started in front of Randall. That's 2. The third mistake that they're talking about is that we should have gotten more minutes for him by playing Obi at the 4 and Julius at the 5. Tibbs was right. This is a terrible idea. A terrible idea. You're going to play Randall at the 5, the guy who's jacking up 8 threes a game. He thinks he's a wing. And then you're going to play Obi at the 4. If they had committed to playing Obi 28 minutes a game with Randall at the same time, they would have gotten either swept in the first round or lost in 5 games. They won that series playing Tibbs ball. Second chance opportunities, better offensive efficiency, beating up the glass. If they had committed to playing those two together, it would have been a disaster. So those are the mistakes that I don't really think were mistakes, that a lot of people think are mistakes. Why there's hope. It seems like we've figured out as a team that this is who Thibodeau is. Look at the guys we brought in for the last couple of years. All the Villanova guys are Tibbs guys. These are people that can succeed in a Tom Thibodeau environment. Last benefit, and I'll tie this up in a sec. We've destroyed the notion that Tom's got new tricks in his bag, that he's going to have some kind of road to Damascus kind of moment, and he is just going to evolve into something other than what he is. No one thinks that's happening anymore. That has been dispelled. It is not happening. So the front office is going to understand that we are only going as far as Tibbs basketball and his coaching style and this roster is going to take us. I think Tom Thibodeau is not going to fulfill the last year of his contract. I think that's going to be the last year of his contract. I think they will move on afterwards if they do not make a serious run. And the last part, the Randall contract, I think we're going to trade Randall and get something for him. And I'll explain why. I'm looking at the free agency lately. Guys like Bruce Brown getting $25 million a year. That contract is going to become very attractive for teams that are hard pressed up against the cap. They're going to say, okay, we have talent. Yeah, he's a bit of a head case, but he's making less than $30 million a year and he's signed for multiple years. At some point, someone is going to find that attractive. And I do believe we will move on for Randall and we'll get something for him. It's going to suck because Obi's going to average like 16 and 8 next year. He's going to Rick Carlisle, third fastest tempo in the league. He's going to look good and it's going to hurt. He was never going to succeed here. And I'm not surprised they got 2 second rounders for him. It's about what Washington got for Rui Hachimura, who was another lottery pick that didn't quite work out. I had heard that they were talking about a first rounder from LA a while ago, but it was a first rounder this year, which is not what they want because as soon as they draft that player, it depreciates. They wanted future picks. I wish this worked out better. It didn't. Let's just wipe our hands of the whole thing and move on. That's my take.
Okay. Yeah. I have a lot to push back on, but go ahead, Ty.
Yeah.
I mean,
Did we say it all? Or?
I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of both you guys are kind of pretty much the whole story how you both told it. I mean, Joe's thought is that he definitely was not going to play here. I mean, we've kind of come to that realization that Obi. Eric knows the one joke I had about Obi in his first year. I said he reminded me of the Batman movie, the old one where he was running around with a bomb. He could never find any place to go put the bomb, and then he's just going everywhere with the bomb. Well, that's what Obi looked like on the court. Because clearly he was shook, in my opinion, under Tom Thibodeau. He went all out to try to please the guy, and he was actually spooked by the demands of his coach. So I never thought it was a great fit. It's the Knicks. I mean, I know that's like so cliche to say, but it is the Knicks. We've been a team of redundancy since I can remember. I don't recall us ever having too much of a balanced roster. We either have 75 small forwards and no point guard. I mean, think about it. We're the one team that went out a point guard for like the last 30 years. Roster imbalance has been the motto of the Knicks. We've never had a balanced team. So it should not be a shock that they would draft another power forward and then go, oops, maybe we want to keep this guy that's in place right now because you drafted a coach who only wants veterans. He only wants guys that, literally stay in the gym and not worry so much as about their ceiling as far as offense. It's just whether or not they're willing to commit themselves to be lifetime basketball players and live and eat the game. That's Tom Thibodeau's players. Now, those don't happen to be the most skilled players. They don't happen to be the most exceptional players. What we get caught up and enamored with as New Yorkers, or maybe just fans in general, we like the flashy new car. Obi came in, he's dunking. We don't have people that dunk in the Garden. We really don't. We've never had that kind of dynamic athlete that jumps off the page. Maybe Sprewell, you might want to say, had a little bit of that to his game, but wasn't as much as it was when he first was in Golden State. But we never had that guy that. What's that you said?
I said J.R. Smith maybe too, but yeah,
Smith,
you're right.
Yeah, Smith too. Smith had that, but also a guy coming off the bench. We're trying to reel him in. Still never let him shine like he could have shined if you just say, here's the ball, go get 30 or whatever. But we've never had an Obi Toppin in the Garden. That's just bottom line. And of course, we're watching this. The guy comes in and he's electrifying coming off the bench. He's got the crowd. He's in New York. He's from Brooklyn. The whole storybook thing. And New Yorkers, I think definitely Knicks fans. I mean, the same way we got Joakim Noah. It's always a sucker for a return home story. So we love that, having those homegrowns, and especially if you've been grown here. But the reality was Obi was not going to start. He never was going to start. This coach, and Eric knows I've said this a million times, he don't like athletes. He just thought, if you're athletic, you're not playing. I've not seen him play one guy that's athletic.
Rose. That's Rose. That's it.
Rose. And he had no other choice. Because
right.
You couldn't bench him for, for Heinrich. You couldn't do that. But basically, Derrick Rose was his greatest athlete that we've seen. Because look what he did in Minnesota. Zach LaVine is a hell of an athlete. I don't think nobody's ever argued about that. What he did, first time he got an opportunity, he shipped him out. He shipped him out. He wants a slow down 890 style basketball. That's what he wants. That old grinded Miami style of basketball. We can't say the Pistons, because I always say with the Pistons really did have a great offensive team. It was like they just played dirty defense. That's all it was. But they didn't have problem scoring. They had a lot of great scorers on the Pistons. But that's the problem with this, is that you have a coach and a front office that's building a team around a coach instead of building a team around a team. You need to have the best coach in the position and have the best talent. The best talent wins in this league. It's not even a question. You got an MVP on your squad, that's what's going to win you a championship. They've gotten to the point they're like, well, this coach doesn't like. I've never heard so many times, even the announcers like Mike Breen, Tom Thibodeau's mad. When has it been that a coach has been the focus of a team? He's the star of the Knicks right now. When you think about it in all its totality, he's become the face and the star of the Knicks, as opposed to them having a singular player that they are building around and making that person a star, because it's all geared towards what he wants. They know Randall is wet in the bed. Everybody and their mama know what Randall's wet in the bed. He's played terrible in key situations, and he's not that he's a bad player. What we've all asked is that when he starts playing like crap, you pull him. That's the only thing we wanted. And when Obi was rocking, we said, can you let him play? When he's playing well, why don't you let him max out the game? Because he's obviously having a phenomenal stretch. But he will pull him, and you'll never see him again. And it was maddening to watch for fans, whether you're a fan of Obi or not. When somebody's cooking, you always feed the hot hand. And I just don't know where this team – I don't know if they're invested in winning a championship or they're invested in playing Tom Thibodeau ball, because that's what it sounds like to me. They're not invested in winning a title, because a title requires that you go out and get the best talent, and especially most of the best ones have been extremely athletic, or at least have the ability to think the game at a high level, like if you're Jokic. We don't have one of those. Maybe we got Brunson. Brunson might be the one player. But are we building around Brunson when we go get – and everybody knows I love Dante. I wanted Dante on this team.
Yeah.
But you're bringing in guards, small, undersized utility guards, to build around Jalen Brunson? That's not going to work. Hart is not a great shooter. I mean, he's good. I mean, he's a dog. But, we proved that in Miami, and they're not going to throw him the ball to shoot. Nobody trusted him to take the shot. His own boy didn't trust him. So it's like this organization is not figured out. And maybe there's a lot of voices in the front office, like most people claimed it to be. And you need to have at least one, I would say, many voices equals many directions. So you need to have someone that's the alpha personality saying, this is what we're doing. You don't question if it was Pat Riley. You don't question if it's Popovich in San Antonio. So you don't, Mike Malone, you're not questioning who's the voice. You need to have at least someone that you know has a great basketball mind, and their voice is what you're following. But the front office, there's nobody in the front office, and maybe except the guy that they just let go of in Perry, that may have had some experience because he was part of the Detroit championship. So he might have an idea about winning the championship, but Worldwide West doesn't have an idea about it. Leon Rose doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Zerkas, whatever his name is, he doesn't have an idea. Who has an idea in the front office? Brock Aller?
What?
I mean, what is he? The championship of numbers? He's not going to be the person that is an architect of basketball. And we know what Tom Thibodeau is. We know what he is. He's been GM in Minnesota and the coach.
Yeah, he was president. Yep.
Terrible that way. So we don't have leadership because everybody's a leader in that clubhouse. And I don't know if Leon Rose is in charge or Tom Thibodeau is in charge of Leon Rose. I really don't know. I think it's a legitimate question right now.
I mean, you both bring up really good points. And yes, in the scope of things now, looking back, we could probably say they hired the wrong guy. No matter how successful they
think so.
Huh?
I don't necessarily think so, but I'll get to
See,
that
I
later.
I do for the simple fact for the things that we already said, and also the fact that this league is not that anymore. Like, it bothers me that you're not playing athletic players because why? Like, what's your main reason? Because they're not, or the guy he's not a great defensive player. Well, neither is Jalen Brunson, neither is Julius Randle, but they play tons of minutes. So don't give me that crap. Like, that's what is your main reason for not playing Obi Toppin? I'm not even saying he'd have to start, but play him 25 minutes a game. Something like that. Like, he was their most dynamic player. No matter how you want to phrase it, whatever. Well, maybe Brunson because of how he scores, but Obi gave them a dimension that they didn't have, right? That's why there were times where the Knicks would be losing. He'd come in the game and they'd go on runs because they start pushing the ball. And that's the style that he works well in. The games they won against Miami, that's what they did when they came back and they scored. They were pushing the ball because Miami had already figured out these guys can't shoot. So we're just going to take away the middle and make them shoot threes. So when the Knicks went on their runs in the games that they won, yes, Brunson was fantastic, but to get back in both those games, that's what they did. They pushed the ball, and he was a big part of it. So when I look at philosophy, I'm saying, okay, you have a guy who coaches like it's 25, 30 years ago, playing in a game now that's predicated on pushing the basketball, hitting three-point shots. That's what the game is now. Half of it he wants to do. He says the guy's got to shoot threes. That's half of this philosophy. But his way of doing it is based off, in a lot of ways, he says that what he always says is the game will tell you where you need to go, right? Like, that's his thing. So what philosophy is that? It's ISO basketball and let the guy drive and kick if he could get to and create a shot for somebody. That's not a philosophy. Anyone can do that. That's what you do in the playground. I take you down to a playground right now and say, give the best ball handler the ball. Be like, go ahead, create a shot for yourself or for somebody else. Kick it out if you get doubled. That's basically what he tells them. So what exactly that Golden State has a philosophy, Denver has one. Yes. Jokic is great. He elevates everything. I get that part, but I'm saying these teams have structure and philosophy on offense that work in a modern NBA game. This doesn't work anymore. So I believe the good thing he did was he came in, he gave them structure. The Knicks were a lost team, and he came in, he demanded a certain style, demanded they do certain things, and they did it.
And he gave them a win.
And they won because, right. But that's like a byproduct of building that, right? Like, you have a certain kind of way of doing things, and everyone falls in line, then you're usually, more often than not, you're going to be successful. Now, last season, they weren't successful. So we can look back and say, it hasn't always worked. But when the talent has played to its ability, yes, they've been successful more often than not. So I think, and I think Joe, you said this too because you said you don't think he's gonna fulfill this contract. You think he's gonna step away. So, in my opinion, they should have done that this year. I know it would have looked weird, but we've seen guys get fired after being coach of the year. So I don't even want to say that it's outside the realm of possibility. It might have been weird, but to me, they just want to be good enough. They run the Knicks like we just want to be good enough. We just want to be competitive. That's it. We don't. If we win a title, great, but they just want to be good enough to be in the conversation, and then hope a star's like, I'm the final piece. Let's go. I could go there now. And I don't think that's any way to build a winner or to build a sustainable winner. So
I think Tibbs coming was an important thing. I think he gave credibility to the franchise. I think he gave it a modicum of success, which it has not had. And I think they've won games playing Tom Thibodeau basketball. I don't think that is going to get us to the next step. And I think the front office is realizing that. I think if we haven't had some of the successes that we've had and gone on some of the runs that we had, I mean, there was a lot of talk about him being let go this year. And I think we do need to let go of him. I appreciate your tips. Thanks for coming and straightening the ship out and everything like that. But we need someone else going forward. That's pretty much how I feel about it. I agree with you, Eric. I think it is Neanderthal basketball. I think that it is not highly cultivated. I don't think it's going to attract people. It's going to win games. It's not going to win titles. We needed to win games for a while. We really did. I mean, if you look at the history, we all know the history, man. I mean, the history is ugly. Ugly, ugly, ugly.
Yeah. But again, to me, they wanted to win games to attract a free agent. Like, that's what they're looking to do. That's the overall philosophy of the franchise.
That's an important step now. I think what happens afterwards is important. But I think, again, I think I said this before. These things have to be done in progressions. You have to rebuild the credibility of the franchise. You have to create a winning culture. You have to show the league that you could win. You have to develop players that are used to winning, those kind of things, on a way to building a championship team. I think a lot of fans just expected, like Kyrie and Durant, we're going to come and boom, okay, we're contenders. We don't have to worry about this. We're going to win a chip. I don't think it works like that. I don't think the league really works like that. I think that this progression was a very important one for the franchise. Thank you, Tom Thibodeau, for your contributions. We have to move on. We have to get somebody that will take us to the next level. I just think, like I had mentioned before, the failures of Obi Toppin, the failures of Evan Fournier, the failures of Kemba Walker just further illustrate the limitations of the coach. The reason that I think building the system around him and the players around him for him to be as successful as possible is success is incredibly important for this franchise, for the optics of the franchise, all of that. I don't disagree with you at all. As far as
go ahead, Ty.
What would you guys feel about it with this regard? This is my issue with Thibodeau. I would have had no problem with them hiring Thibodeau if they were using Thibodeau to influence all the draft picks and young players he had on the team. See, the issue became when they brought in the vets. If you were bringing in Tom Thibodeau and saying, well, we want this hard-nosed coach in here to kind of cultivate the young guys that we drafted, the R.J. Barretts, and whoever was going to follow, Obi Toppins, etc., and Mitchell Robinson. We're going to teach these guys discipline and how to get at it and have a work ethic and a tenacity about them when they approach the court. I don't think no one would ever argue about what style of basketball Thibodeau was playing, as much as what they would argue about is you're playing Alec Burks before you're playing Emmanuel Quickly. You're playing all these veterans with this philosophy that we're going to teach these young guys how to win with guys who have been career bench players, career backups, you got paid basically because you know somebody. Because there was no one valid on the team that we watched that was playing ahead of these guys that should have been playing ahead of a lot of the young guys. You drafted these players, you play these players. The coach could have instilled all of those same things into young players because it would work even better. RJ Barrett would bust his ass, literally, to stay on the court if he knew the philosophy of this coach is he's hard-nosed, you got to play defense or you don't play. Obi Toppin, you don't play defense, you don't play. You can dangle that over their head like a carrot because what could they possibly tell you? But it's a difference when you got a guy starting ahead of you and you're Emmanuel Quickly, and Alex Burks has never been a point guard his whole entire life, and you're sitting behind him and you're getting the popcorn, and you're saying, well, what the hell's going on here? I'm busting this guy's probably his ass in practice, and you're not letting me get any burn on the floor, and it's all because you haven't completed the fifth question on your SAT of adulthood. Oh, God, you haven't been in the league for 10 years, so that disqualifies you from ever being able to start. Look at Emmanuel Quickly, who does everything, and I'm not the biggest Emmanuel fan, but I'm going to ride for him in this regard. He does everything Thibodeau asked him. He's in the gym sleeping with incense. I mean, he's like hanging out with Ibs, watching 500 million hours of film, and he goes, I love it. But Emmanuel, you'll never start here. This is before even Brunson. He never saw that dude starting. He was never going to give him the position. So what is the incentive of playing when these young guys, they come in? What is the incentive of playing under Tom Thibodeau? Because right now what we're seeing is that he's saying, I don't care what you do, I'm going to still trade you for a veteran. I don't care. We want veterans on this team. And that is the issue with the front office. They could have easily not given him those veterans that he requested and said, you can instill your philosophy, but it's on who we draft, these young guys. We're a youth movement team moving forward, trying to build a culture. You can't build a culture with veterans. They're already vets. Tom Thibodeau, he's a lazy coach in a lot of ways because the offense, basically what he's telling you, play defense, and I know the vets are going to figure it out. I'm not worried. Let them figure it out. You figure out the offense. Emmanuel Quickly has come out and said, we can do whatever we want on offense as long as we play defense. He doesn't care what we do. Who wants that coach? Who wants that coach to be influencing your team when they say that? You can do whatever you want. Just play defense. And this is an offense league. It's always been an offense league. Let's keep it a buck. When you go back to the 80s, those teams played great defense, and the scores were 135, 134 in the game. It's always that offense. It was only when the Pistons and the Knicks came in did it become this dragged out, and then also, and for no offense to our team, but because of a lack of offensive prowess, is why Pat Riley said, "Well, I'm going to go rugged because we don't got a bunch of talent that can score. So we're going to beat teams the hell up." So this philosophy, it's always been an offensive league up until the bad boy Pistons said, we're going to just hit the hell out of everybody and punch everybody. And the Knicks are like, well, Pat Riley's like, well, we're going to grind it out. He goes to Miami, we're going to grind it out. The two teams, he brings in Jeff Van Gundy after that to the Knicks, another grind it out. Those are the only times you've seen the stalled offenses is with those guys and the philosophies. They have the Tom Thibodeaus, the Jeff Van Gundys, the Eric Spoelstras. That's why they got their ass bust against Denver. You want to play to slow down, lethargic, no offensive talent? You need Tyler Hero. You need these guys that can get buckets in the end because it's about a make or miss league no matter which way you throw it. You got to have guys that can get you buckets. And this philosophy is an old archaic relic that no one has used, and nor has anyone won. Really, when you think about it, the Knicks didn't win. They didn't win a title. Miami didn't win a title. They won when they got Wade, and they told basically Riley, get out the way and let him do what he needs to do offensively. That's how they won.
Yeah, they had an older Shaq. Yeah.
Old Shaq. They had Gary Payton, White Chocolate. Those dudes was on the squad. And, Antoine Walker, old veteran team. But Wade was the reason they won that damn title. There's no doubt about it. And it was letting the youth shine. And he is an offensive juggernaut when he gets started. He wrecked Dallas in that finals. So that's what I'm saying. It's like this stuff is old and it's getting old. As far as
Hmm.
you don't bring in a coach and say that this is it's not going to win you anything. It has never won that I can recall. It's never won anything. Other than I mean, the Pistons still had offense. They weren't
The
like
Rockets, the Rockets played that kind of style, but
they
they were
shot
one
a
of the
lot of
first.
threes. They shot
Right,
a
they
lot
were
of
one of the
threes.
first teams. Yes, they were one of the first.
Corey, yeah.
Yeah, that
But
was
That was a good team too. That was a fun team to watch. Also,
well. They had Olajuwon, so that he tipped the
yeah,
scale.
well, yeah,
But yeah,
yeah, just
go
that
ahead,
little
Joe.
thing in
Go
the
ahead,
middle.
Joe.
I think the one thing that we can agree on is in order for this team to really be
Mhm.
a competitor, there needs to be a philosophical change
No, yes,
from the top.
absolutely.
The idea that that philosophical change was going to happen over the last couple of years, again, people like to deal in hypotheticals. Well, he should have played Obi more. He should have played him and Randall at the same time, all these things, without acceptance of the fact that this is a Tom Thibodeau team.
Yeah, I agree with
And
that.
to win now, you're going to have to win Thibodeau's way, and you're going to have Thibodeau players in there, and that's how you maximize the now and win games. There has to be a philosophical change. Stephen A. Smith, someone I frankly despise, but he brought up a name that was really interesting that could be available next year, and that was Ty Lue. What do you guys think about that?
I would be okay with that, Lou. Only because he has a ring as a coach. He's also was the guy who told LeBron shut the hell up and go sit somewhere. So clearly he's not starstruck. You know,
Mhm.
like I said, I just look at Thibodeau's style of basketball. And like I said, it has never really worked anywhere. Not just jumping on him. I'm saying he's from the tree of Riley. When Riley won in LA, it was offense. It was Magic Johnson. It was Showtime. When he won in Miami, is Dwayne Wade and a bunch of talented veterans that were still offensive minded and Shaq. Not that Shaq was in his prime, but he wasn't. He was still somewhat Shaq. Put it that way. Thibodeau's style is not winning you anything.
He's won
It
a lot, but he
it
hasn't won
feels
on the
like
big
anybody
stage.
else coming in. If you had Kenny here, you had Tyronn Lue here, any coach with some credibility. That's why Doc Rivers is not winning because he kind of got that same theory. You know, nobody's winning that way. You got to have somebody who's innovative, and then you got to have a world talent. I mean, that goes hand in foot. You know,
Yeah.
there was an article about Brunson. I think Brunson and Jokic were the only ones. I think actually Brunson scored more points than Jokic against Miami per
Yeah.
average. And that just lets you know, well, we might have a stud on our team, but that stud got caught in the corner like a little mouse on Tom and Jerry because there was no offensive philosophy. You know, when Jerry cornered Tom and said, "Don't you believe it?" Well, he had to believe it because let me tell you, he was a mousetrap. And how we lost in the end. We couldn't execute on offense.
Does
Still comes down to offense, no
Does
matter what.
Brunson need
You
an
can't
offensive
execute.
philosophy? I feel like he has his own offensive philosophy in his own game.
Who's this? You said?
Brunson.
Oh, Brunson is the offense.
What?
He's the brain.
Well, yeah,
He
like
He
is
needed
the
an
offense.
offensive
That's what it is.
philosophy. I mean, I
I
think
feel like I feel like he plays within the offense, and then when he knows it's not working, he's like, "Hell with this." He
Hell with
just does what he has to do.
Thibodeau,
I'm
you're not
rolling it
changing
up.
his game. You're not teaching him new tricks. He knows what works for him, just like Tibbs feels like he knows what works for him. The whole thing's
It's
sad.
bad.
Brunson
It
makes
is.
Brunson makes this team. This is my biggest compliment to Brunson. Brunson makes a lot of this bad looking, ugly stuff look pretty because
I
of
love watching him.
how good he is. Very good. We like Nick. We haven't had a star, and he doesn't look the part. He doesn't. Physically, he doesn't look the part. You expecting the star we would get in New York is somebody who's like Vince Carter jumping out the gym and flat. Jalen Brunson is a star. And that's what I'm saying. He's at that level. He's not a superstar, but he's a star.
Yeah,
And
he
he's
is.
cleaning up a lot of the garbage that would ultimately would be losses. Because look who RJ couldn't get a bucket. Randall, we already know he disappeared. But in the Cleveland series and the Miami series, granted, RJ came alive in the Cleveland series and he did really good also in Miami. But make no bones about it, that's Jalen Brunson all the way while we got
Yeah.
where we are. And we will go as far as his ability to play past Tom Thibodeau's tired ass philosophy. That's the only way to go. You want to know how we're going to win? That dude. He's going to have to be the reason you win almost every night by his intelligence and his ability to score. Because we know Julius is not going to go have brain surgery this offseason. And he's going to come back and it's like, oh, I've unlocked the door. He's found a magic wall and he's going to suddenly move a gym. And I've discovered my brain. Oh, we're going to be so much different.
We better hope he does, man. This year.
What's that?
That's what I want for Christmas this year. No seriousness, man. The best thing that could possibly happen is the Knicks go out in the second round again. They decide they plateaued with Thibodeau. They move him off. Yeah. Randall has a good year and plays decent in the playoffs. The contract looks good. We move him for something that actually matters. That's the perfect season. The worst thing that can happen is we make it to the conference finals. They re-sign Tibbs to an extension, and like all of these things. And I love Tibbs. I like the guy. I really do. And I appreciate what he's done. But the worst thing would be to have a really successful non-championship year. Worst thing that can happen to us.
I don't think we will have one. I think this year was the year, and Eric knows I was saying it for the longest. I'm walking around with a flag in our chat, smoke screen thing. This was the year.
Yeah, they could have.
This was the year. And Knicks fans, I hate to tell y'all, we might not get that year again until we might get another star, so to say, that asks for them. Right now, in the next 2 years, this is our team. People may not figure that out. Even if you trade R.J. Barrett, you're going to trade him for a guy like OG? So you get better defense, but that's all you're going to get. The scary thing about what they're doing with Tom Thibodeau, and this is why I don't like what they're doing, you're gearing around a coach that you're going to eventually fire one day. What are the leftovers going to look like?
The leftovers will be translatable over into whatever they're doing now. People that play defense, that hustle, that all of those things will fit in on a different philosophical team. Because
I agree with that part. The assets. If you keep giving up first-round picks to move off of people.
Guys like Josh Hart's, DiVincenzo, players like that, Mitchell Robinson.
Would another coach even use them? Would another coach even use them? That's the question you got to ask too. Would another coach, would Tyronn Lue find Josh Hart as valuable as Tom Thibodeau?
I think a lot of coaches would.
They might do, but I'm saying how he's been utilized. Like, he has a huge role in this Knicks offense, and he doesn't even shoot. I think it's kind of crazy. We have a bunch of bench players. I'm not being funny when I say it. We have a bunch of bench players right now. We have arguably one starter in Brunson, clearly, and Julius is a starter in this league. RJ, starter, but it's because he's because of where he was picked, how he's being utilized here. I wouldn't call him a starter. He'd probably be off the bench somewhere else doing what he's doing here because he's not the focus of anything. So another coach might come in and say, well, if we're going to start Brunson and Randall, we would be better bringing RJ off the bench and let him run with the second unit. And that's not my wish for him, but I'm just saying he's not being utilized in the sense that you can bring him in and he's being maximized with what he does great, or what he could be great at doing. I should say he does one thing great now, but I'm just saying I don't know if these guys would have the same usage rate as a guy like Tom Thibodeau will use it, because those guys are getting 40 minutes a game. Who would really, in the grand scheme of things, you watch him take the number 3 pick and he will make him disappear for one whole half of a game. I've never seen. I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong. When have you seen a guy take lottery picks and bury them and think that they have no use? I've not seen one. I've not seen one franchise that is taking a lottery pick. He said, "We got no use for those around here."
He always goes back to what's comfortable for him.
Yeah,
and that's who he is as a coach. Like, that's what Joe was saying before, and he's right. Like, he's always going to revert, even though he says, I try to modernize myself, and I want to. When stuff starts going bad, you're gonna go back to what's always worked for you. That's just how. That's most of us. Like we're gonna go back to your comfort zone to put things in perspective and to get things right. And that's just what he does. I mean, like I said from the beginning, I wanted them to hire when they hired Thibodeau, Ty knows this, I wanted Kenny Atkinson because I said he had just done all of that with the young talent with the Nets. And I was like, he would be perfect to come here. They had RJ Barrett, they had young guys. He would have played Obi. I know it. Like there would have been, I don't know if they would have been successful these past 2 out of 3 seasons and made the playoffs. I have no idea. But I do know that from the way I like to build a team, we'd be further along than where we are now because I'm all about draft the young guys, develop the young guys, and then see what you have. I'm not about draft the young guys, intersperse some veterans, and let's try and get there faster. That's not how I like to do it because to me the Knicks have been doing that forever, and it just doesn't work. So that's the philosophy.
Kenny would have done a competitive tank, which is what the Knicks needed. The year the Knicks made that bubble playoff it set the Knicks back. I don't want to hear about we made a playoff and they had bubble gum in it. I don't want to hear about that. That was the draft of Cade. Was that Cade's draft? That there was some talent in that damn draft. If the Knicks don't make the playoffs, you're supposed to lose draft, and then hope that you figured out a star somewhere in there upon getting the draft. You're supposed to be picking up guys that are in the high draft because you're supposed to be losers waiting to find the gym. The Knicks you can't be a mid-team. You either got to be real bad or really great.
That's exactly the point.
When you're a mid-team, you're going to be in the middle of the pack like we are now. It's going to be somewhere. You're going to be the 4th or 5th seed each year, hopefully maybe get in the second round, and your ass is probably going to get bounced and never go to conference finals. We saw the Atlanta Hawks for all them years. Remember when Mike Woodson had the Atlanta Hawks? Couldn't get anywhere. They were a mid-team. They had no superstar. Same thing with the Knicks. The Knicks may have lucked out with Jalen Brunson, but you even still got to build. You still got a guy on the team that's not the second dude for him. Okay. And you're holding on to him like this guy's the answer. He's not a chip guy. He's not the guy you put three great players around and said, Randall's going to be your third. Do you really want him to be your third? I wouldn't even want him to be my third. I'd want him to be on the bench, being the 6th man. What does he do? The third person has to feed off of the other 2 guys. What is he going to do? He's going to be a shooter all of a sudden?
Well, hey, if they got a player who was if they got a traditional wing who to be the star, then you could just make him the power forward that he was in New Orleans, where he, like I said, he played below the free throw line and was finishing, and you could do that.
Do you really think Tom Thibodeau would use him as that? I don't think so.
The only way they would do that, and Joe was right, I said before when you were talking about Obi, the only way they would do that is if they got someone who was clearly better than him. That's the only way you can do that. And then, so if they got, say, Giannis, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just speaking hypothetically, but if they got Giannis, Randall's never seen like that. He could just forget it. Like that's it. He's not, that's what I mean. You have to get, yeah. It has to be someone who's clearly better than Randall. That's the only way his stature on the team is going to diminish.
What do you think would happen if they had gotten Paul George? What do you think would happen with that? Like if Brunson is your dude, and you have Randall and Paul. Like I know a lot of Knicks fans are like, oh, you got to get PG 13 or whatever. What do you think would have happened with that dynamic? Like how would that fit?
Since you brought him up, I actually had him on the list. Since you brought him up,
let's move on.
Let's go. Let's move
on. Good
all right. So Joe, I'll let you start with Paul George. Tell us what you would think about the Knicks acquiring him at this stage of his career, and the package it would probably take to get him. Go ahead.
It depends, man. What do I think about them getting him?
Yes.
If you're going to make a push for a chip, like a serious push for a chip, and this is one of several moves, and you're going to go nuts out right now to try to win a chip. I don't hate the idea. I don't like it. I'm not. I'm trying to open my mind up to the possibility that there are other paths to a championship. Like you, Eric, I'm a traditionalist. I want us to draft our own guys, develop our own guys, love our own guys, all of that stuff. However, when you were talking about tanking and drafting through there, I have to say the method that the front office is doing right now, we're closer to winning than we ever would be if we did that. With all the assets we have, with the pieces that we have right now, we are really not in a bad position. And it doesn't look like that. So, Paul George, what I think it would take is too much. I think it would probably cost you RJ and multiple first-round picks. I'm thinking one of our own unprotected and two of the ones that we got. They would probably want the Milwaukee one, which is the most probably valuable out of all of them, and pick another one. But again, if they were picking up Dame Lillard and Paul George, yeah, screw it, roll the dice, let's do it. Let's run for it. Let's really run for a trip. But if it's just Paul George, no way. I don't. It's not going to move the needle enough. And he's also talking. He wants an extension. Like, no.
Yeah, too many injuries.
So I'm saying 3-1s and RJ. That's what it will take.
Yeah, I kind of already know Ty's position on this because he's always been anti-Paul George, so I don't need to really ask him the question. I'm much more of a fan of his game.
Eric's got a good memory. This is so funny.
Yeah. I'm much more a fan of his game than Ty is, mostly because of the two-way player ability that he brings. I like guys who play both ends of the floor, and he's really good at both ends of the floor. So, he would help in that regard immediately. But his age, his injury history now, and just exactly what it would take to get him at this stage of his career, I can't co-sign that. I mean, we've talked about Dame before too, Ty, and we've said it about him too. Like, he's a much more dynamic player, a better player than Paul George, and I wouldn't even do it for him at this stage. So, yeah, I'm also on the. I don't understand. Like, I heard they kind of were re-engaged. They kind of re-engaged with them in talks over the weekend, but then he wanted an extension, so the Knicks pulled back again and said no. That's the last I had heard from that perspective. So I don't know. I like the player. I like his game. I think he's a great story. That injury was catastrophically bad, and he's come back and been a multiple-time All-Star. Again, two-way player, but yeah, I'm out too. I don't want Paul George. Ty, you can explain why you don't want Paul George if you want, but I don't need to ask you anything specific regarding him. I know that.
I tend to think of him more as, do you really want to hurt me? Do you really want to make me cry? Paul George. That's my issue. I mean, I'll never forget. This is when my falling out with certain players happened. When he was in Indiana and they were going up against Miami. And I'll never forget, that dude went down the middle and yammed it on Miami. And I'm like, man, Miami might have a problem. That's the way I looked at it. Because I'm like, this dude, the Pacers at that time, they were coming. They looked like that team. Mm-hmm. And they weren't. Yeah. And they weren't. And I'm waiting for this dude to like, you ain't that dude. Yeah. But you had me almost like, that might be the dude. And not just because, I didn't like Miami, but I'm like, this dude was fearless. He's going at it, and it just, and I'm like, no. Then a roll of Charmin paper just fell out of his bag and luggage. And I'm like, this dude's a little softy. You can't. And everywhere he's gone, it's just been more Charmin, in my opinion. I mean, I'm just watching this dude, waiting for him. I know he's a great two-way player, but I always tell people, you look at his numbers, people knock RJ. Paul doesn't average no more than what RJ's been averaging for his career. It's not like these glamorous numbers that you might think Paul George averages 28 intent. No, he's like 19, almost 20 points a game his whole entire career. And
he's a better player than he is now.
What's that you said?
He's a better player than RJ is now.
Yeah, yes. He is. But my thing is with that, I'm like, well, the production is pretty much the same. I don't there's nothing about Paul George. He had that one great series, and Eric knows it was like, well, Ty must have heard you. It was against Phoenix 2 years ago, and Eric says, well, he must have heard you talking crap about him because he had a coming out party, and then he pushed him, I think, to 6 or 7 games without Kawhi. So I know he has the ability. I just like guys that show up. And my point is about with RJ. RJ is playing in New York. Paul was playing in Indiana. You had a tough time there? You was in OKC, couldn't figure out Russ. You had a tough time in OKC? You're in LA and you injured and you come to New York, dude, and you hurt, your feelings hurt. You in a club like Zion, find another wife, whatever you doing, dog. I'm just saying. That is not going to cut it here. And then on top of it, you're not suiting up. You're not suiting up. I mean, we're right in Anthony Davisville if we brought that guy in here. You don't know when they're going to be on the team. You don't know, he's going to be Street Clothes Part 2, the New York version. We don't know. I just don't like guys that you don't know if that they love the game enough. Like, he's talking extension. Dude, you got 2 more years left in your damn contract. Why do we need to talk about an extension now? You have 2 more years left. Mm-hmm. It's like you're coming in here and you're on an expiring. You have 2 more damn years, and we're talking money already. That lets me know where his head is at. It's not talking championship, because if he wanted a championship, he would tell the Clippers, don't trade me. The Knicks are not ready to win a title. We have more things here if Kawhi is healthy to actually win a title. So he can't be about winning a title.
I do wonder if part of it is Kawhi. Like how hard it is to go into every season knowing that. I mean, as you want to say Paul George doesn't suit up, Kawhi doesn't suit up like on a whim. He'll just be like, I don't want to play today.
He couldn't suit up at the Caracos right now.
Like, it's so crazy. It's so crazy because I say this all the time. If he played more, and when he has played more, he's one of the top 3 players in basketball, Kawhi Leonard, when he plays. Like, best two-way player easily. Absolutely. And then everything he gives you offensively, I mean, he's just phenomenal. But again, what's with these guys being so freaking strange? They're so weird. I don't know.
But see, that's the weirdos thing is we already got one resident weirdo because Julius is weird. We already got one weirdo. And I couldn't imagine adding 2 weirdos to this team. That's why I was asking you about what the fit would be with him being here. We'd have 2 guys that they like disappearing sometimes. Mentally, aesthetically,
it would work. Like,
aesthetically, it does work. It's just
right. Aesthetically, it would work. Yeah.
It's another thing I want the extra years too. Tibbs is going to break him.
Oh yeah.
He's not playing. I'd want the insurance too.
That's why weird. That's what you're gonna do. That's why it's weird when you hear them talking about getting him. I'm like, Tibbs is gonna deal with this load management stuff. He's gonna be like, "What the hell is that?"
Ice, get him some ice.
I mean, and I don't know the lingering effects from that injury. Like, I'm sure there are some from that kind of a fracture. I'm sure there are some.
Did you ever see the video from that?
Yes, I have.
I saw the game when it happened.
My stomach kind of turns when that and Gordon Hayward's. Every time I see those, I'm like, ooh, those are some rough.
Give the word dangle a new meaning.
Oh my God, that was bad, man.
Yeah,
that was bad.
I thought his career was over literally when that happened. And big up to him. Like I said, I'm not a fan of his, but to come back from that recovery and still play at a high level, I give him a lot of credit for it.
Yeah, he's been all NBA, and I mean, he's been great. I mean, I can't say there's levels of greatness, but he has been, he has been a great player. Yeah, just at this stage.
For me, it's here. I mean, I don't want guys coming. The Knicks go all in. Supposedly the package literally was. I think it was R.J. Barrett, Quentin Grimes, and 3 first. Anita Marks, I think is his name, was the one that reported that's what the package was, and the Knicks felt it was because then what canceled it was him asking for an extension. I guess probably pretty much what it was. I'm like, they should have hung up the phone when they said Grimes and RJ and 3 picks. What are we doing here? Paul George's not winning you no title. No.
Yeah, I don't know.
Need another player. You still would need another player. Because look at how it's great. I mean, we do right. Kawhi's checked out of games. Is Paul George the missing piece to a chip?
But if it were
they need somebody
that we got from OKC,
What's
if those were the 3 picks, if it were the 3 picks that we got from OKC on draft night a couple of years ago, if those are the 3 picks, you have another more ammunition to get something else. You have all of your own unprotecteds, plus
we got
whatever.
picks from OKC? I thought we traded that kid to OKC.
We traded the number 12 pick to OKC for Washington, Detroit.
Oh, okay. I now get what you're saying. I get what you're saying now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think those things have value. I think they've lost. I mean, that's just me. I mean,
no,
they're going to be in the 20s at the best if they even are picks. And if you look at those other ones, when are they going to convey? They're probably going to end up being second rounders to whoever gets them. I'm one of those people. I don't value our picks as much as a lot of people buy them. I mean, if we were a bad team, our picks are great. Or if we got none of the protections on, I mean, the protections are incredible. Like the Detroit one's probably never going to convey. The Milwaukee one will.
I think Detroit will convey.
And the Washington one is now iffy also.
Yeah, Washington's
that probably is not going to net you Paul George one. You're going to probably give up one of yours, and then maybe have to try to protect it. But the Knicks,
it depends on what picks they're talking about.
Well, that's it. And look, the Knicks. This is what I go back to pawning off things. By you trading Obi Toppin for 2 second-round picks, you're already telling them you don't got no value on your team. You have nobody valuable on your team because you're like, this dude that was our 8th pick is only worth two second picks and basically a replacement killer in Dante DiVincenzo. Because now when teams come to you, they go, well, you really don't value RJ because you're always shopping him for 2 years. So we know you don't value him that much. So now let's add some picks to that. So
he's not over the lottery pick.
Tax is going to get higher, getting a bigger player.
Yeah,
he's not over the lottery pick anymore. He's Obi, the guy who's 3 years in, averaging 7.5 points a game.
And once again, we've lost value on players. Like I said,
he's not over the lottery pick anymore.
Our assets when we draft, like right now, our supposed most valuable pick probably is Quentin Grimes. He's probably the most valuable pick, given his contract. And I think he's the dude. That's outside of that. What Quickly's market, I don't think is as big as I think. As much as New York fans love him, and I'm not being biased here because I don't like him like that. I just don't think I've heard other reporters say he's not as valued as Knicks fans believe he is, and the Knicks hold him when he goes out on the open market, which we'll find out because somebody's going to sign him to an offer sheet at some point.
Nobody on our roster for the last 10 years has been valued as much as Knicks fans value him.
He's. Yeah, I mean, again, he's just another guy that I'm just like, okay, who is he? Still, after all this time, I'm still with Quickly. Like, who is he? I have no. Is he the guy who he was in the regular season this year, or the guy we saw in the playoffs who couldn't get out of his own way? And it's not like he was a little bad. He was really bad. Like it was like he jumped off a cliff. It was very, very stark. The change. So he's a guy, he's a tough guy for me to gauge still, and he's been here just as long as Obi has. Like they came in the same draft. So
is that really, when you think about it, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, isn't that what you could say about all the Knicks draft picks? Outside of Quentin Grimes, maybe? Who are they? What are they? What was Obi? What is RJ right now? What is Mitch? What is Emmanuel Quickly? Because we see glimpses of them in a system where we get these moments where they've won games and helped to win. But if you were to define them as what they're great at, we could say Mitch is offensive rebounding. That's what we could say about him. He's not a great shot blocker. He can block shots. He's not.
But his presence, yeah. I mean, people. I think that's because guys don't challenge him as much as they used to. But that's, yeah.
So those are two things you might could say about Mitch. Offensively, we don't believe he has absolutely nothing but and one tape on the summer. So we're done with him. Obi, we never knew what that was. He was shooting.
He could dunk.
He was shooting 3-pointers and he was shooting 3-pointers he shouldn't have been shooting, and he can dunk and he can leak out on fast breaks. But that's not a specialty. Like, that's not a skill. That's just him being overly athletic. RJ, what is RJ? We know he's supposed to be. Is he a wing or is he a two guard? You know, what is he great at? Is he going to run the offense or he's not running the offense? You know, every Knick player that's been drafted looks disjointed in some form of fashion, like they're undeveloped. We don't have a developed draft pick outside of Grimes, who probably is just very good. He's a 3-and-D right now. I mean, we can pencil him as that's his floor. He's going to be no less than a 3-and-D player.
He drives and distributes well too.
Yeah, and he should be doing more of that. He should be getting more of the ball handling duties and say Brunson should be. But once again, we go back as ice. We're playing ISO basketball. If Brunson and him were actually working off of one another, then Brunson would go off ball and say, Grimes, you bring up the ball. But whoever has the ball in their hand is making all the decisions. If it's Julius, Brunson, here, my turn, your turn. No, there's no offense philosophy. Unless you guys see one, it's been ISO. That's all.
I said it before. I went through it before.
Let him figure it out.
Yeah, that's like another thing I was going to say before. There's really no development of players. They get thrown into the game, but I don't see much. I will say the only thing Obi did get better at was shooting threes, but you can do that on your own. Like, if you become a better shooter, to me, you're doing that on your own after practice.
Yeah,
just putting extra work in, right? That's not something that, unless they tweak your shot, which they've done. That's the thing with RJ. They've tweaked it like 4 times. and then when he finally started hitting some in this playoffs, they showed you like he moved, his feet are like an angle now, and he just releases coming. I'm like, they just did something before the last time that didn't work. That was, I don't know. I think again they're trying too hard with him. Like, get him to do something consistently, and then that's the thing. Like, let's just get a consistent thing with him, because I mean, we know how good he can be. Like, the guy's almost scored 50 points in games. I mean, he can be a very, very good player. But it's with him, it's peaks, valleys, and the peaks are very high and the valleys are very low, like Death Valley, very low. So I don't know. Where do we go? Where do we go from here, guys? I mean, I don't know. The rest of the off season, are we gonna? Do you think we're gonna see a trade? You think we'll see a trade before? You do?
I think they're trying to get. I think RJ is probably out of here in some package that probably is not going to make sense to a lot of Knicks fans, because it might be for the current success as opposed to a championship success. Because I think there's just such a split mind in the sense that Knicks fans want to be relevant in playing in the playoffs, not being laughed at, which, trust, we all get. But if your goal is to be a championship team, then what they're doing right now, from all the chip teams I've watched over the last whatever amount of years that I don't want to discuss, and we have not been one of them, I've never seen what we're doing now winning. I don't know if anybody else has. The way it's structured now, you have a great point guard or talent in Jalen Brunson, and I don't see a second piece that I say, that dude right there is the dude. And it's not to jump on Julius. It's just the fact that I believe the front office believes he's the second piece. And that's the scary part.
I don't think they believe that.
Buy him, because it seemed like they bought him, because when they talk about trading for Paul George, you know what makes sense? If you threw Julius Randle, the Clippers, and brought Paul George, if you're going to trade star for star, because he would fit better next to Brunson. He would be a dynamic wing and playmaker next to Brunson. as opposed to Julius, who can't see the floor. He can't. Paul's not a dumb player.
No, Julius sees one half of the floor.
One half of the floor. So your trade that you're trying to get was saying you would have to throw in less picks and less young players if you traded Julius to improve your overall team. Like I said, Paul George for Julius to add next to Brunson. I would be only concerned literally about his injury history and not about the fit at all, because you have two dynamic playmakers that can get to the cup whenever they feel like it. That's good basketball in any state. But if you got a guy who's got to pound the ball, hold the ball, think about the game, get taken out of the game mentally before you go, won't play defense if he's out of the game, that's what I don't like about this whole you got to play defense for Tom Thibodeau. Not if you're Julius Randle, because that dude don't play no damn defense.
It's true. He has to, yeah.
There's an unaccountability that's going on with Julius Randle on this team. I don't think that the front office thinks for a second that he's the second guy. I don't believe that at all. I think they know they're dealing with somebody that's fragile. That's why they don't get after him about the way he plays and jacking up 8 threes. I think, I don't know. He's not treated the same way. He's not coached the way Tibbs would normally coach a player because he can't handle it. He's emotional and I think kind of fragile in a way. There's a different standard going on. There's a double standard, I think, going on with how guys on that team guys on that team are coached and how they treat Randle. I think they would move off of Randle in a heartbeat if they could. I think eventually they will be able to. I said that earlier in the show. I think they will move off of Randle and I think they'll get something for him. But I think they would move off of him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I do think that's fair. In a sense that, because Ty, we've talked about this before. He does as good as he's been the past 2 seasons. Of the 2 out of the past 3 seasons, people have seen the playoff meltdowns as well. So his value isn't as high as it would have been had he had this regular season and played good in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So it's a weird place for them with him value wise right now, because again, we talk about the young guys, we don't know who they are. Do we even know who this guy is? At the end of the day, do we even know
who he is? I'm just not going to say it. I know exactly who the heck he is.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like we talked about him ad nauseum with the mental breakdowns and stuff like that. Like that's, I don't know if that's fixable. So, Joe, to your point, they probably see that too, and they're probably like, yeah, he's only good when things are going well. Because when things go bad, so does he. Like, that's really what it comes down to.
He doesn't strike me as somebody that can take tough feedback.
Oh, no. That's for sure. No constructive criticism to that guy. He goes in a shell. Yeah.
But are you guys thinking, I mean, I'm wondering, like, say the front office knows the cat they got in the hat. Does it make sense that you're trading off players with no realistic backup to this guy who you should be trying to find the first exit hole that he can go out? It's like, not saying Obi has to be the answer, but the fact that we might go into this year and Josh Hart is going to be your backup 4.
There's going to be another move out there. It's still, the offseason still is early. They're going to have to do something.
You move off of Julius, you keep Julius Randle and say you get rid of RJ. I'm not saying RJ is an all-star. I know Julius' credentials are better. But we are talking about where his credentials lack. He's not built for this market in a lot of ways. Are you going to get rid of a guy who actually isn't built for the market to keep a guy because he's emotional and you can't get rid of him? It's like, if anything, I'm sitting that guy's ass down on the bench and having a talk with him about we might got to move off of running a lot through you.
It's the value, but it's the value thing I just brought up. They can't move on from him right now because of the value isn't where it should be. Are you going to take 50 cents on the dollar for a guy that's been all NBA 2 out of the last 3 seasons?
You can't ask me that because I'd have given him for 2 now.
Well, yeah, I know. Like you would,
I'd have been got rid of him, but
you would have traded him for 2 second round picks.
That's the thing is like, are they holding on too long to the idea of what Julius Randle is? Like the idea of what he is.
Well,
He's a two-time All-Star. I understand he's checking all these boxes. That's like when you look at Toronto. They knew DeRozan wasn't that dude mentally. Like he was lighting it. He's once again a regular season champ. You watched him; he was fantastic. He was beloved in Toronto. But what did Toronto eventually understand? I'm shipping that two-time All-Star out of here because he's not going to win us a title because we don't think he's equipped to handle the pressure in the playoffs. So we're moving on to Randall here. I know it's a short window, it's 2 out of the last 3 years, but if your hopes is to win a championship, then wouldn't you be trying to trade that dude off to get a talent that you know could possibly get you to the title as opposed to – I'm saying you're stacking 3 picks next to RJ. You're already stacking 3 picks and grinds next to RJ to get Paul George. So you're losing a lot of your assets and 2 young promising pieces to get a guy like Paul George. I'm just saying, like, would you not attach a couple first to Julius to get a better talent as opposed to saying take compensation because we know this dude's going to bug out in the playoffs anyway? I'm not understanding why you're exchanging the laundry that way and you know the guy you have there is not cut for it.
You're not getting anything for Julius right now. What eventually will move Julius is the contract to production. That contract's going to look really good at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to move him then for something. RJ, again, I don't think – I've never been big on RJ, man. I hope the young man pans out and everything like that. I've never been his biggest fan. Eric knows that well. I don't think either of those guys are the answer. And I think we value them. I still think we value probably them more than the rest of the league does. But
I agree.
I think ultimately you are going to have to wait for a market for Julius to develop, and that market will develop eventually if he continues to play the way he is. And it'll develop quicker if he has a modicum of success in the playoffs. If he does just enough to cast a little bit of doubt that maybe it was the ankle. Maybe that happens. Maybe the first time was a fluke, something, throw a little pixie dust on it.
Oh, I fall. That's what he's going to say. He's like, he's on Friday. Oh, I fall.
I look at them. I look at those 2 players differently. Like Randall had been in the league a long time and he was starting to, develop an identity for himself. And I blame Fizdale for a lot of this, but he was starting to develop an identity for himself as like I said before, below the free throw line player, good finisher around the rim, things like that. That's why the Knicks signed him to begin with. Yeah. That was the reason why they got him. Remember, that was the same year that the Durant-Kyrie stuff was happening, and we thought we were getting them. He was the consolation prize. And I think that got into his head, saying this market was expecting those 2 guys. I have to be better. I think Fizdale giving him the ball, basically saying you're our LeBron James in that regard, I think that got into his head, and he completely changed the way he played. And I give him credit for that, being able to do that and eventually become an all-star and an all-NBA player. Like that's an admirable thing. Mm-hmm. But, the devil's in the details, right? Like you look further at what the kind of player he is. He shouldn't be a wing. The guy's 6'9", 250 pounds. He should not be shooting 8 threes a game. That's not where he's best suited. But that's what he's become. So you look at all the greatness and all the numbers, and the rebounding is great. That's one thing I've always say. He's a very good rebounder. You want that. But if he was closer to the basket and he was, giving you still 19, 20, 21 points, but shooting 56, 58% from the field because all those shots are in close, to me, especially the way that Thibodeau likes to play, he would be better served as that player. Mm-hmm. And then you could have had someone when they drafted RJ who is more of a wing. They could have developed him to be that player. You're the guy on the perimeter, right? Like all these things kind of roll into the philosophy of how we got to this point. But when I look at both those 2 guys specifically, RJ was drafted here, yes, homegrown. You can say all you want about him, but he understands playing in New York. He understands the market. His father played college basketball at St. John's. His mother is from Queens. He knows what it's like to play here. The moment is never too big for him. He may not always be great, but he's a level-headed guy. He can hit big shots. He likes the big moments. That's the kind of player you want to keep, in my opinion. Randall is much more talented, much more skilled. Better with the ball. He has all these different kind of moves. But up here, he presses the ball. He really clutches the ball in big moments, and he makes mistakes, and he spins when he shouldn't spin, and he throws a pass where it shouldn't be, and loses the ball, and then it luckily falls into his hands, and he hits a game-winning shot. Like I'm, just, like all this stuff. It seems so much harder for him to do these things, and that's why mentally for me, I'm going to choose the guy who the RJ mentality as opposed to Randall. And that's just how I look at them. A high level view of how I look at both of those. Luckily, we have Brunson now, though, and he better be looked at going forward as the star here. I don't want to hear this Randall crap anymore. Brunson needs to be like, yeah, okay, that was cute last year, but I'm the star now. And, this is my team.
This is my punk.
Right. And I'm hoping that that's how it goes. And that could be a tough conversation for Randall, too, because, like you said, like Joe said, he doesn't like to be criticized, probably. So, and if you're telling him, yeah, we're going to alleviate the burden a little bit, in his mind, it's like, well, what am I doing wrong? Like, it's just a different how a little kid gets, right? Where you do that to a little kid. He's like, I'm sorry, I didn't do nothing.
He's had a rough year next year. He better come out lights out.
Yeah, he better.
This Obi trade. I don't care if Obi was not going to be Amari. The Knicks fan base loved Obi.
That's true.
And they don't like Julius.
He's good.
They're going to look at he was the choice over Obi.
Yep.
And it's
That's
going
exactly
to,
what they're going to do.
If Randall has any weak months, this is what I'm saying. His value never is going to be high. I'm just going to tell you, he's walking into a hornet's nest because mentally he's going to feel the pressure more so to be lights out and to prove that Obi was just a backup. And I'm only sure he's going to come out feeling that he got to prove that Obi was a backup. I'm 400 times better than Obi. You won't miss the guy. I'm going to win big for you. I just think he's going to be under a lot more pressure knowing who Julius is and how he behaves. He's going to take it personal, and that might not be the best thing.
He's going to enter the dunk contest just to prove everyone wrong.
Well, he's already in a 3-point contest. Which I know is crazy, but that's another story. No, all
right, so Joe, let's close with this. Joe, you said you think we're going to make a move before the season begins. What's the move?
Not the big move. I think it's going to be something to balance off the roster. Ty, you had sent something through that I read earlier today.
The Cats article, yeah.
The imbalance of the roster. It's going to be a roster balancing move. Mm-hmm. I don't see an OG Anunoby or a Karl Anthony Towns or, God forbid, a Zach LaVine or anything like that happening. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be a roster balancing move. If it's something that we can pick up extra assets, that'll be that. This has been a boring draft followed by a boring free agency, which is going to be followed by a boring Knicks offseason. We're not going to see anything crazy go down this year, I don't think. But okay. I'm wrong a lot, so I don't mind being wrong. I do have to say one more thing. Ty, you're the MSVG sphere. So we both got the sphere going on. Are you the London sphere or the Vegas sphere? I'm going to be the other one.
Come on, baby. I got to be Vegas. It's got to be a little flashy around here.
I'm going to need to develop an accent. I'm going to work on that.
Look, I got to go Wesley Snipes. Always bet on black. You know he said that in the movie. Come on.
Ty, do you think we'll make a move?
I think we're standing pat. I don't think there's a move to be made. I'm a little worried about them constantly just tossing their players that are really here for the long term, probably into all these trade scenarios that are now getting leaked out. I
Yeah.
don't know who's doing the leaking. I'm assuming some reason Leon Rose is probably wanting to let people know he's active. He's trying to make a big move. I just think that you got a good dude in RJ, it seems. And like I said, I'm not saying he's an all-star superstar. And I'm not saying Grimes is either, but have some respect for the talent that is coming here and busting their butts all year long to be competitive. You might want to keep their names out of these trade scenarios where people are able to repeat it, because you're probably going into camp with these guys by the time it's done. I think DiVincenzo is the last move they'll make. Grant went to Dallas from Celtics, so
Yeah.
I don't think. I've said ball. Why don't the Knicks go pick up dynamic four? They can be cheap. They can back up Julius for the 11 minutes that they only want him to back up anyway. And
Block
he can play
shots.
a little bit of center. He can, he's versatile. He can be 4-5. I think if anything, they might pick up somebody, hopefully off the trade wise, like a ball. Torrey Craig, we know he went to Chicago, I believe. There's no move to be made. The Knicks don't have the kind of valuable assets, in my opinion, that can net them the kind of talent they want without giving up the whole farm. OG, know who's holding the count there, Ujiri. He's going to actually have the Knicks team. He's not giving up.
He already did. If you believe the rumors, he already did.
Yeah, well, 10 draft picks.
Yeah,
I don't know what that hashish is up there that they're smoking in Canada. But come on, 10 first. Michael Jordan would get 10 first round, 10 first picks. Are you serious? I don't see Cat leaving. Cat would require you to get rid of Julius probably. Why would you even bring him here to be in that mix? That makes no sense. Embiid's not going anywhere. Embiid might be the guy that forces his way out, but I think he don't believe he needs Harden, so I don't even see him going anywhere right now.
Not this year, no.
Yeah. I think it's a 2-year. The superstar, if there ever is going to be one or that level of talent, I think that happens 2 years. You're running this team back 2 years, you might make some, like I said, some move that somebody's probably not going to be very happy about because it's going to cost you too much. But I don't think we're probably making any moves. I think they want to move RJ, but I don't think there's going to be a player out there that's going to be available where you make that kind of move that's going to make your team better.
If that's true, are some of the assets that we do have, are their windows closing as far as their prime goes? At 29 is Brunson's prime closing when you finally make that room to get him a number 2.
It's usually the 30. Like I think a prime is like 26, 27 to around 32. I think after 32.
Yeah.
So he'd still be in that range. But again, he should age well because his game's not predicated on athleticism.
Yeah.
So he should age pretty well. All things considered. I don't see a move happening either. I didn't see one I honestly didn't even think they were going to trade Obi. I thought they were just going to stick with the team they had and roll the dice. Again, I didn't know, especially in a salary dump, which I didn't even get into that part of the trade because that's just ridiculous. But so I don't think they're going to make a move. If they do, it will be something smaller to balance the roster. I don't think it's going to be a big name guy. It could be just trading some of those picks, maybe trading more, maybe trading the seconds we got for OB for a guy to replace it or something like that. Something in that kind of a package I think will work. But this team, like you said, Ty, I think this is the team we're going to have in 2023-2024 season, unless maybe one of the guys, summer league, right? Maybe one of those guys shows out and
maybe Trevor Keels becomes an all-star.
If they don't move one of those guards, that locker room could get ugly.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
I also do think if a trade is made, I don't think it's going to be RJ. I do think it's going to be quickly. RJ, they have under control. They signed him. They extended him. They have to do that with Quigley. I think if they're going to make a move, he's the guy that'll go, which would be crazy because then they would have traded both picks from that draft that they took. But I think his value right now is higher as well.
Yeah.
For the reasons I stated, he's also an expiring contract. You can work out a deal with him moving forward. He's the guy that if they were going to move this offseason, I think he's the one they would do. For who? It better be a forward now. Like, better be a power forward.
Well, from who was it? Bagley or was it Katz that said that they tried to move quickly for a significant player in his prime, but it was shot down like a Scud missile basically. So that didn't work. So, which I wonder, like, if his values was it because they didn't feel he was. I mean, we don't know the full story if it was Quickly's value wasn't high enough, or what the story was. But I'm like, he's the one exciting asset that you have that people seem to talk highly about is Emmanuel Quickly. I mean, me and Eric probably don't talk highly about him, but everybody else seems to love the dude. But if he didn't net you anything, I don't know what somebody else is going to net you at this point.
I think it's the fact that he does want an extension, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that might be putting some people on pause.
And he wants to start somewhere. I don't know where in this league he's going to start.
No.
I mean, I'm thinking about teams. Every team outside of the Knicks got a point until this past season has a point guard in place. The Knicks were the only team running around for the last 45 years without a point guard. But most teams now, if you look at Quickly who wants to start, I don't know, maybe Chicago because they don't have ball.
Well, that's sad. That's a whole sad story.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous with him. Very sad. But the Celtics need one. The Knicks aren't trading him to Boston.
No, that's not happening.
That's not happening. Brooklyn maybe could use one, but they're not trading him to Brooklyn.
He'd work in Miami too, obviously.
Miami,
but
obviously.
There's sites that are named, so that's not happening.
So the Knicks are not. So it's like Quickly's market. If he wants to start, I don't know where that's going to happen. I don't know. I mean, maybe San Antonio, maybe.
Pop would never run him at the point.
No, Pop would choke him in the locker room before he got out.
I love that guy.
I wish he was in New York.
Oh God, they had a chance at one time. There's a whole story behind it. There's a whole story behind it too. If you read about it, it's too sad to get into. But they had a chance at one time to pry him away, and they didn't.
That's the New York story. One step behind.
Yep, him, Jerry West. Like we've heard about all these guys at some point. They had a chance to get, and it didn't happen.
Curry, one step behind. It's just the most
and then when they get Phil Jackson, it's not to coach.
No, not the coach. This is a job you've never done before.
All right, let's put a ball on this one. Great conversation this week, guys. This was fantastic. But yeah, Ty, tell them where they can talk to you and plug a little
bit. Well, once the sphere is open, maybe. Wait, hold on. Can I get it? I'm working on that. Maybe I'll be at the sphere. Actually, you can hit me up at G Scribble on Twitter, and also hit me up on our All Knicked Up fan page. Come holler at your boys. Come on.
Yeah, Joe, I'm gonna have to make you an admin in the group now, so you can have all the fun that we get to have of approving stuff.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to yell at me for anything I said today, you could do so on the fan page.
Yes. I'm the one with all the fun Twitter handles. I have the first one is finally 33 spell finale 33. That is my personal Twitter handle. @ all_Knicked_up is the Twitter handle for this show. If you want to interact with me about this show, do it there. I also do that's where I post a lot of the news, and I'll retweet stuff and talk with other people who are in this space. That guy Alex B is so annoying, but hey, I don't knock his hustle. So good for him. I would love to get him on because I think we just have a fun time with him. He's a lot like us, just a little bit more unhinged. so I think it would be fun to have him on. Nice. We'll see I'll ask him and see how that goes. Yeah, guys, I also do a pop culture podcast called Straight Outta Gotham at straight_o_g on Twitter is the handle for that. We discuss movies, pop culture. There's also a page for that on Facebook, Straight Outta Gotham. I recently posted my review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So if you want to check that out, you can do that as well. Yeah, and I think that's it. So unless you guys have anything else.
Yeah, just go back to being miserable. We can't even enjoy Summer League. I mean,
All right. So
who have been watching on that?
yeah. Well, start Saturday if you're interested. Start Saturday. It's fun. All right. So for Ty and Joe, I'm Eric. You are watching All Knicked Up. I'll see you next time. Let me end.